Theo's next victim, confirmed, as he vows to kill major Coronation Street character in early ITVX release. Warning: this article contains spoilers for Wednesday, January 28th's episode of Coronation Street. The episode has not yet aired on ITV, but it is available to stream now on ITVX and YouTube. If you thought Theo Silverton's darkness ended with Billy Mayhew's death, think again. In chilling upcoming scenes from Coronation Street, Theo, James Cartwright, appears poised to kill again, and this time, his sights are firmly set on a major Weatherfield figure as his increasingly toxic feud with Carl Webster, Jonathan Howard, erupts into something far more dangerous. The tension has been simmering for weeks, but the latest early release episode suggests it is about to boil over, with Theo issuing a threat so cold, so explicit, that it leaves little room for interpretation. And if Carl makes one wrong move, he could be the next name added to Theo's growing list of victims, a secret too big to bury. Last night's episode ended on a nerve-shredding cliffhanger, confirming what many viewers feared. Carl overheard Theo's private apology to Billy Mayhew. For anyone who isn't fully up to speed, Billy was killed at the beginning of the year in a devastating multi-vehicle pile-up. The tragedy unfolded after Billy drove a minibus carrying wedding guests into the crash scene, only for the vehicle to catch fire. As flames swallowed the minibus, Billy became trapped inside. Theo, in a moment that initially looked heroic, ran back into the burning wreckage and reached Billy just as he managed to unbuckle his seatbelt. But in a horrifying twist that has since redefined Theo's character, he didn't save Billy at all. He murdered him. Theo deliberately fastened Billy's seatbelt back into place, calmly, deliberately, then abandoned him inside the inferno. Moments later, the minibus exploded. Billy never stood a chance, and yet, Theo has been living among the community ever since, wearing grief like camouflage, slipping through the cracks of suspicion, and leaning on those around him as though he, too, is merely a victim of circumstance. But guilt has a way of leaking out, and last night, it did. Theo's confession, and the man who heard it. In an eerily quiet scene inside the funeral parlor, Theo was left alone with Billy's coffin. With the town mourning and emotions running raw, Theo finally let his mask slip. He apologized to Billy. He confessed his guilt, speaking as though he believed no one could hear him, as though the truth could dissolve into the air the moment it left his mouth. Except it didn't, because Carl was there, listening. Every word. That revelation instantly shifted the power dynamic between the two men. Carl now possessed the kind of information that can destroy lives, and Theo, for all his calculated menace, suddenly looked vulnerable. At least for a moment. A funeral, a crowd, and a quiet threat. In tonight's episode, Weatherfield gathered to give Billy the send-off he deserved. The funeral brought out familiar faces, shared grief, and the heavy sense of a town trying to recover from yet another heartbreak. Theo was among the mourners, presenting himself as supportive and devoted, standing by boyfriend Todd Grimshaw, Gareth Pierce, at a time when Todd needed stability more than ever. But there was a catch. Carl was there too, and rather than keep his knowledge buried, he made sure Theo understood exactly what he had. Without needing to say much, Carl hinted that he was the one who overheard Theo's emotional confession at the funeral parlor, the one who now knows the truth behind Billy's death. In that moment, it looked as though Carl had Theo cornered. Theo's secret, so carefully hidden, had found the one set of ears it never should have reached. And Carl, never a man to waste an advantage, appeared ready to use it. Carl's fatal mistake. But if there's one thing Coronation Street excels at, it's reminding viewers that power is rarely stable in Weatherfield, and those who think they've won often lose everything seconds later. Because Carl made a mistake, a big one. Later in the episode, Carl committed yet another crime, and this time, Theo caught him red-handed. We won't spoil the exact details of what Carl did, but it involved a secretive meeting with two co-conspirators, the kind of encounter that reeks of desperation and bad decisions. You'd think, after catching Theo out, Carl would know better than to slip up himself, but Carl has never been known for restraint, and as it turns out, he's been playing with fire for far longer than anyone realized. Drugs, blackmail, and the ultimate leverage. Theo spotted Carl in the middle of a deal, handing drugs to two lads. Yes, drugs. At this point, viewers could be forgiven for asking, is there a crime Carl hasn't dipped his toes into? From manipulation to intimidation, Carl's moral compass has long been spinning wildly, and now, it seems he's ventured into even darker territory. Theo didn't confront him immediately. He did something smarter. He took a picture. Later, during another confrontation between the two men, Theo produced the photo, undeniable proof that Carl is involved in criminal activity, and threatened to expose him unless Carl backed off and stayed away. It was classic Theo, controlled, calculating, and quietly cruel. A reminder that beneath the public face, Theo is a man who doesn't simply react, he plans. But Carl wasn't intimidated for long. Because Carl has his own ammunition. Tell Todd, and you'll end up in a coffin. Carl pointed out that he, too, has blackmail material, the kind that could obliterate Theo's life in seconds. He threatened to reveal the truth about Billy's death, and not to the police, not to the wider community, but to Todd. If Theo went anywhere near Debbie Webster, Sue Devaney, again, Carl vowed he would tell Todd what Theo did, that Billy didn't die by accident, but by Theo's hand. The threat hit where it hurts most. Todd is Theo's emotional anchor, and likely his greatest weakness. Losing Todd wouldn't just cost Theo a relationship, it would cost him the protective cover that allows him to exist in Weatherfield without suspicion. Carl thought he had him. But Theo, always determined to have the final word, delivered a response so chilling it felt like the air dropped out of the room. He warned Carl that if he told Todd the truth, he would end up in a coffin just like Billy. Not metaphorically, not as a figure of speech, as a promise, a vow. A death sentence. Is Carl really Theo's next victim? That single line changes everything, because Theo is no longer hiding behind implication. He is no longer dancing around threats. He is saying it plainly. If Carl exposes him, Carl dies. And suddenly, the question isn't whether Theo is dangerous. That's already been proven. The question is, how far will Theo go to protect himself? Carl may think he's untouchable, armed with the truth about Billy. But Theo has already shown he is capable of murder, not in a moment of rage, but with calculated intent. He didn't kill Billy in a panic. He killed him with control, and that makes him infinitely more terrifying. Who has the upper hand now? So where does this leave Weatherfield's most volatile feud? On paper, both men hold leverage over the other. Theo can expose Carl's criminal activity. Carl can expose Theo's role in Billy's death. But Theo has one advantage Carl may be underestimating. Theo has already crossed the line. Once someone has killed, the next step becomes easier. The moral barrier has already been shattered. Theo has proven he can commit the unthinkable and still walk among mourners with a straight face. Carl, for all his corruption, may not be prepared for the kind of evil Theo represents, the kind that doesn't just ruin reputations, but ends lives. The wrong man to cross. Carl might believe he's messing with Theo. But it may be the other way around. Theo's threat wasn't just a warning, it was a glimpse into the future. A preview of what he's willing to do if backed into a corner. And the more Carl pushes, the more likely it becomes that Theo will decide the only way out is to silence him permanently. So should Carl take Theo seriously? After Billy, there is only one answer: absolutely.